American West is a disgusting, awful, dirty, dangerous place. Look around you. Everything out here that's not you wants to kill you.
A comedic take on cowboy culture rode into third spot at the box office. A Million Ways to Die in the West wrangled up just over $17 million this weekend.
I've come a long way to guide us, to bring us together. The X-Men. We need your help.
The combined might of the X-Men still wasn't powerful enough to hold on to the top spot. The series' latest installment, Days of Future Past, slips to second with $32 million.
I know you're there. Don't be afraid.
I am not afraid.
Then come out.
Then you'll be afraid.
But it was Disney's twisted take on a classic fairy tale that cast a spell over the box office. Maleficent conjured up $70 million in its opening weekend. Now back from Cannes is Jason Gorber, a critic with twitchfilm.com in Toronto. Jason, welcome back. How was Cannes?
Hi, Scott. Cannes was amazing. I'm still recovering. I'm still in crazy jet lag. What can I say?
Still recovering, okay.
And you get movie jet lag, too, because you're seeing all these insane films at Cannes, and then you come back and you see some Hollywood stuff. You're like, oh, right. This is what the rest of the year's like.
Okay, so speaking of Hollywood stuff, A Million Ways to Die in the West, what'd you think of it?
Oy vey. So here's where we're at. We got Seth MacFarlane. Look, I think that people divide sort of into Simpsons guys and Family Guy guys. I know there's some people that like both, but I think it's kind of that Beatles-Elvis thing. You got to choose one, and I choose Simpsons. I'm not a huge Family Guy guy. I like Seth MacFarlane. I get his humor, but it just doesn't really speak to me. I kind of adore that he has enough clout now to do something which is usually box office poison, which is to make a Western. This is a very libidinous, filthy, completely lowest common denominator jokes take on the Western, but it's definitely a love letter to that genre. And he surrounds himself with some impeccable performers. I mean, you got Liam Neeson, you got Charlize Theron, totally rocking it, totally trying to do their best to elevate this very, sort of winking script. It just doesn't come together. It's shot well, it looks good, the costumes are good, the action's pretty good, but it's just that he can't quite get the tone correct. And look, we're 40 years after the film that this film really desperately wants to be, which is Blazing Saddles. And Mel Brooks did kind of a miraculous thing with Blazing Saddles. Yes, it's a completely silly and stupid and lowest common denominator film, but it elevated by some incredible performances. And Blazing Saddles, 40 years later, is still shocking, still has a social satire bent to it that completely rocks it, whereas this, a contemporary film, in some ways feels a little bit safe. It feels like it doesn't actually go far enough somewhere. Now where they connect, I don't want to be sort of inappropriate here, but sort of Blazing Saddles introduced the fart joke to contemporary cinema. Literally, it was the first film to do that. This new film is like, oh, it's Seth MacFarlane. He's going to go one step further. So you have him trying to outgross the audience by pushing a little bit farther, but it just stops being funny after a while. It's just him hammering the same joke over and over. So for me, it didn't really work.
Gareth Edwards tackles Godzilla finally after, what is it, 50, 60 years or something like that from the original? 60, again, so for the Blazing Saddles was 4 years ago, 60 years since we first saw Godzilla emerge from the water and beat stuff up. Now look, Godzilla, the original Godzilla was a parable. It was a post-nuclear holocaust Japanese film, a connection between nuclear fears and the notion of the environment. And Gareth is a remarkable filmmaker. He did a film called Monsters in 2010. And this is very much a Spielberg-style movie in the best possible way. The character's named Brody. I mean, there's tons of Jaws elements here. We don't see the creature for a long time. So it's a very slow, somewhat deliberate film, and I think that's put off some audience. I strongly recommend people go see this while it's still in theaters. Even if you don't love it, this is a filmmaker who's incredibly interesting to watch, and for me it's particularly interesting because he's the first guy tasked with the standalone Star Wars film. We all know JJ is making the next episode film, but part of the Disney acquisition means that these filmmakers are going to get their own sort of single one-off films, like the Yoda movie, or I want to see the Probot movie, or whatever. But you're going to have these sort of standalone films where you can explore the Star Wars universe in a very interesting way. This is a filmmaker, I think, who will totally take his own take within the Star Wars universe
universe, and Godzilla is definitely another stepping stone in what I think is a remarkable career by a remarkable filmmaker.
I'm really amazed that you got the pronunciation dead on for Godzilla.
Well, I try. I've seen too many of the films. Again, like it's a film that Godzilla, the original Godzilla, is on Criterion disc, like the sort of art house disc. It is a film definitely worth seeing the original if you haven't seen it. And this new one in theater is very much unlike the remake, like a couple years ago, which just made it a silly action movie. This new one is very beautiful, very sort of stylish, and it's a super interesting film to see along with Pacific Rim. Between the Guillermo del Toro sort of look at kaiju, these sort of fighting big creatures, and this new Godzilla, we have two very interesting, very compelling takes on North Americans looking at Japanese culture within this context of this film. Definitely worth checking out while it's still in theaters.
Jason, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Scott.